This is a cheap adventure to Kiev in Ukraine. So here I am getting on the plane along to Kiev, and this isn't any old Ryanair flight. This is the first ever Ryanair flight from London to Kiev. And I booked this flight because I thought it'd be something special, being the very first flight to Kiev. But no, it turns out it's no different to any other Ryanair flight. How disappointing. So then, this is the very first time I've been outside the EU and EEA. And it was quite a bit different to what I'm used to. And yes, by the way, I do realise that Vatican City and Switzerland are not in the EU and EEA. But in practice, they pretty much are when Kiev is properly outside the EU. And it is very, very different to what I'm used to. And let's just say there's no joined up thinking on pretty much anything. So then I now arrive into Kiev, and here is Kiev Airport. And I was hoping to do this whole trip just using my card, but I very quickly realised that this wasn't possible and I'd have to withdraw cash. To use my card outside of Europe, my bank only charges me 2%, but to withdraw cash, it charges £1.50 plus 2%, and the cash machine charges me another £1. So £2.50 just to withdraw cash, which is very overpriced considering everything else in Kiev is very cheap. For example, the metro only costs 23p to go on. So then I now get on the bus from Kiev Airport into Kiev, which is advertised as the luxury Sky Bus. Turns out it's a little tiny knackered bus. I could not fit on all of the people I needed to get on it, and it was completely utterly crowded and cramped. This bus is one of these captive market buses from the airport, which is overpriced. Although not overpriced for me, as it cost £1.60, but compared to all of the other transport in Ukraine, it is actually overpriced. So then I'll get on this bus along to the nearest metro station and just take a look at this. And pretty much everywhere in Ukraine looks like this. Very, very different to what I'm used to. Everything's so different over here. And all of those little niceties, which you probably don't even realise you have in the EU, do not exist in Ukraine. And it's very difficult to actually explain what it's like. You really do have to go there and experience it for yourself. So then I now go onto the metro. And this is where, despite everything I've said, it was completely 100% worth it to come here. Because of the awesome Metro Wagenmarsch trains. These are absolutely epic. They've got amazing sounding motors and are completely awesome. I'm going to release several videos of these trains, so make sure you check out my videos of these absolutely epic trains. Then I now go along to the place where I was staying. Finding this place was difficult because the Latin spellings of things in Kiev are not hard set. There was more than one spelling for this hostel, which is very confusing. Even Kiev itself has two spellings of the city name. So then it's now the next day, and I'm now going to take a look around. This place costs just £11 per night. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's all pretty nice, and it's so cheap, £11 per night. Although this place did completely mess up my booking, which was annoying. Although I don't completely blame them, because they couldn't speak any English and I couldn't speak any Ukrainian, which is why the booking got messed up. But none of this would have happened if they'd accepted card like they'd said they did on booking.com. I think there should be bigger penalties on booking.com for places that say they accept cards but they actually don't. So then here's the balcony outside of my room, and if you've seen my tower block archive of the Soviet tower blocks here, you'll know that loads of people built massive extensions onto these balconies. So let's take a look at these balconies. How can these people put these massive extensions on? There's a tiny balcony. This place hasn't, but so many other places have put massive outwards extensions on. How do these little tiny balconies take the weight? So then, let's get this adventure in Kiev started, and let's first go along to the hospital. And this hospital is amazing. It's completely different to any other hospital. It's so antiquated and old-fashioned. It's so epic to look around this hospital. The architecture looks amazing, but it's not really the sort of place you'd want to go if you actually needed treatment, because the facilities did look very, very outdated. But as a building, it looks awesome. And along to the lift, which is an epic old Soviet lift. Otis appeared to have refurbished the lift car, but everything else about the lift, the motor logic and everything else is completely original and Soviet, and it's really knackered and awesome. And now go along to the next lift. This lift looks like it's a bit refurbished at some point, but the motion logic's still original and has that really old Soviet feel to it. And these pictures on the wall here do look very communist. And now go along to the next lift, which is a completely original old Soviet lift. Yes! This lift is completely knackered and completely epic. And now to the next lift, which is a newer lift. This one is a 1980s Otis. So then, let's leave this hostel and let's take a look around Kiev. And this is what most of Kiev outside of the city centre looks like. It's all little markets like this, individual people selling stuff, and there's actually very few supermarkets, and the few supermarkets there are often hard to spot. Most people don't even go in supermarkets. They buy all their food from little markets like this, or often just from people sitting here on the floor with a load of food around them, and people buy their food off of these people. It is so different from back at home. I'm completely not used to this. In fact, it took me over a day just to get used to the way things are in Ukraine, because they are so different. And there's loads and loads of crazy buses. There are more crazy buses and public service buses, and these buses have the most nutcase bus drivers who break the speed limit and overtake the public service buses to get their trade. It's head-to-head competition, and make sure you check out my full video of these crazy buses. And now, in many parts of Kiev, there appears to be no shops about. And sometimes it's like, where do people buy all their stuff? There's no shops anywhere. And there'd be stairs going down to underpasses with no signs at all, completely unlabelled. And you think it's just a place to go underneath the road. And you go down into his underpasses and it's like a market. Some of these underpasses have shops built into it. Some of them it's literally just market stalls. It's like the underpasses are where everyone goes to buy their stuff. And now go along to the next lift, which is a really weird lift. It's got a central opening door, but one side of the door is smaller than the other side. That is so odd. And now go along to Kiev Central Station. This station is completely over the top. It's the weird thing about the Soviet Union. All of the residential buildings are built really cheap, but the few prestigious buildings, they go completely over the top with making them super prestigious. And this central hall looks absolutely amazing. This is some train station. And let's take a look at departure boards. And these departure boards are completely different to any other station I know of. Most stations have departure boards saying what the upcoming departures are, when this train station shows every single departure for every single day. And it literally shows every departure is, and some of them have notes on saying only Mondays and stuff like that, or only weekdays, and it changes every minute from showing the departures in Russian script, showing them in Latin script. But at least they do actually show them in Latin script here, when I'm guessing the rest of Ukraine only shows them in Russian script, which is going to make it much harder for when I come back here and do my epic adventure across Ukraine. And one thing that was very hard work with being in Kiev is, apart from a public transport, there's literally no Latin script anywhere. Latin script being like A, B, C, D, like the English alphabet that you're used to. You just don't see it anywhere. Everything's in the Russian alphabet, meaning you can't read anything. Plus, I didn't want to turn on my mobile data here. Since Ukraine's not in the EU, my phone company charges me £6 a megabyte. What the fuck? So I wasn't using the internet on my phone, and everything's in Russian script. Yes. Very confusing. So if we go across to the other side of the station, the other side is actually really modern looking. This is like an extension they've put on at a later date. And let's take a look at the lifts, which are some glass hydraulic lifts. And now let's go down to the platforms and take a look at the trains. These are the intercity trains from this station, and they are big, heavy duty, but ever so old at the same time. And this station smell of steam trains. Even though all these trains run on electric overhead power, in the middle of the trains there's a coal fire. And I think that's to cook stuff in a restaurant. I'm actually not sure of its purpose. A coal fire on an electric train? That is so odd. And everything here is so old-fashioned looking. Being in this station is like going back in time. The railways here are like stuck in the past. Oh, this is amazing. Let's just take a look at some trains entering and leaving the station. So then, as well as these intercity trains, which are all loco-pulled trains, there's also the suburban trains, which are these really awesome old trains with DC motors with epic motor sound. Make sure you check out my video of the suburban trains, because they are just amazing. Another thing is that a lot of the stations on the suburban line, the stations are unlit with no lights or very few lights, and a lot of these stations do not even have underpasses or bridges to go between platforms. Everyone walks across the track on an unlit crossing where there's fast suburban trains and goods trains regularly going along the line. So then, now go along to a hotel, which is the Ibis, which has some Schindler 3300s with capacitive buttons. This is actually the very first reg lift that I saw in Kiev. This hotel was all very nice looking. But you can see a place like this anywhere. So let's leave this hotel and carry on looking around the classic things that you see in Kiev. And now go along to a little shopping centre. Kiev has quite a few of these little shopping centres dotted about. All the shopping centres look like the Tafaga Centre in Chatham before it closed down. And this shopping centre has an Otis Gen too. And now I'll go along to the next shopping centre. This is a fairly typical Kiev shopping centre. This one's one of the more upmarket shopping centres, although it still doesn't actually look modern. It still looks quite old fashioned in its design. It's going up now, better stop. What? Okay, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And now go along to another one of these underpass shopping centres. But this underpass shopping centre is bigger than all of the others. This shopping centre has been built along underneath the roads of the centre of Kiev. It's actually a really big shopping centre, and it is literally, is this where the roads have been dug up, a shopping centre built underneath the streets, and the streets built back on top of it. And this shopping centre goes on quite a long way. So then let's take a look around the city centre of Kiev. The city centre looks quite a bit different than the rest of the city, as it looks a lot more like it's had money spent on it. And into Gulliver shopping centre, which is a very modern and epic shopping centre. On the outside it's got a spectacular lighting effect. Inside the shopping centre it's got some really awesome ThyssenKrupp lifts. And let's take a look around this shopping centre. This shopping centre looks really nice. So then, the next day, let's go looking around Kiev and let's go along to the Funicular. So then, let's go looking around Kiev. And along I go to the next shopping centre. It's quite a big shopping centre. Again, this one is built underneath the streets in the central square of Kiev. And along to the lifts. So let's go walking around this shopping centre, and it's quite confusing here. This is because it was built underneath the streets here. And along I go to the next lift, which is a really cheap and nasty hydraulic Doppler lift. Doppler, I didn't expect to see a shithole Doppler over here. And along I go to a hotel, and this hotel looks really grand. This is a big grand Soviet building, and this hotel is really epic, and this hotel has some old lifts. The others does actually go all the way up to 16. The other one only went to 14, but it seems like to save money, putting the same button panel into both lifts. And on the top floor, there is a locked fence stopping you from getting out of the lift. There's also some Otis lifts. Boring! And now along to a tower block, and along to a tower block lift. Probably used to be a Soviet lift, but it's been replaced. And if you open up the lift, the car top's completely filthy and is in a complete utter state. And on top this lift, on the inspection control, you need a key to put it on inspection. That would be completely against regulations in the EU. This is really fucking dodgy. And there was actually a key in the key switch, but when I turned it, the lift didn't enter inspection. What a dodgy fucking lift. So that's the end of my adventure in Kiev, so I go back to the airport, and the airport has a Schindler Eurolift. So then, here I'm getting on the plane along to my next destination, which is Krakow in Poland. So then, make sure you check out my video of the trams here. These trams are absolutely knackered and are very interesting. Also, make sure you check out my video of the tower blocks here. The tower blocks here are like nothing else. Loads of people have extended their flats outwards, like making big overhangs over the buildings so they get more space. Some people have put weird and wonderful conservatories onto their little tiny balconies. The extensions to these blocks are bizarre and look really unsafe. So make sure you check out my Tower Block Archive Soviet Russia edition. The links to all of these videos are in the description.